The first lesson, lesson 1. I have trouble believing in God. There are many things about God that bother me. For starters, what is God? Besides, can I live perfectly well without Him? Why do I need Him in my life?
I mean, you can see the obvious confusion that's going on. I don't believe in Him. By the way, what is He? And why do I need Him? So there are 3 completely different issues, totally confused. So where do we begin? Let's start with things that we do understand. First of all, we understand that the most meaningful and most real things in life are not visible. First of all, intelligence is not visible. Emotions are not visible. Even in the physical reality, what you see in the table, this is not the reality. We know that under a microscope this looks very, very different. And what we don't see with our eyes is more real. It's the building blocks of everything. It's more real than what we do see. This is like every kid in school learns this in elementary school. So the problem with not seeing is a non-issue. Since when does seeing something make it real? All of human development, all of human progress, all of human knowledge has been to go past what you see and find out what's really real. Like gravity is not visible. And yet gravity is one of the most fundamental laws of nature. Secondly, the one thing that we know is real is the need for meaning. Life has to have meaning, otherwise we get very depressed. Has anyone ever seen meaning? You have to believe that there is meaning? Or is it something we intuitively know and instinctively we recognize? You got to have a meaning in life. Where does this need come from? It's not philosophical. It's not scholarly. Every human being, even if he never opened a book in his life, needs to have some meaning. Where does that come from? It must logically come from the existence of meaning. If there never was a meaning to life, why would we be looking for it? Why would we need it? That's like if you never had a home, how can you be homesick? So the fact that we're all looking for meaning is not a collective disease or sickness. It's because life is meaningful. If life is meaningful, then there's an author to that meaning. If existence is meaningful, then it must be meaningful to its creator. That's just simple logic. By the way, the greatest scientists believed in God more than most religious people. Because when you study the world, you come to the conclusion that there's got to be a why, which is much more than intelligent design, much more meaningful than intelligent design. There's got to be a purpose, a why, not a how. So, let's start with, when we use the word God, what are we talking about? So when people say, I don't believe in God because religion has been very bad, separate the issues. First, define who is God, what is God. So we have two branches, two lines of thought in the Torah. One is Sefer HaChinuch, that the first mitzvah, the most important mitzvah, is emunah. You have to believe. You have to believe in a creator to the extent that if someone threatens your life and demands that you deny that belief, you're not allowed to deny it. The Rambam, on the other hand, says that the first mitzvah is that you have to know. Because how can you have a mitzvah to believe? How can you have a commandment to believe in the commander if you don't already believe in a commander? So to say, God told me to believe in him, why do you believe that? So you have to know God first, then you believe what he tells you. So the mitzvah can't be the belief. You can have a natural belief, you can have an intuitive belief, but you can't have a commandment to believe. Who's commanding you? So the Rambam says, emunah, that's an instinct. The first mitzvah is you have to know. You have to understand, and you have to be able to explain. In fact, I think the Frierdiker Rebbe says that you shouldn't make the mistake of thinking that Yedias Hashem, Da'as Elikei Avicha, the knowledge of God, simply means to know that he is. And we do. We know that there's a creator because there's a creation. But that's not really fulfilling the mitzvah. The Frierdiker Rebbe says, it's not dat yediyah is only a hachana. It's a preparation to the real mitzvah. The real mitzvah is havana, not yediyah. There's a difference between knowledge and understanding. You can read a lot of good books and get a lot of knowledge. You don't understand the word you're saying. But you know. You know the facts, but you don't really understand them. Then you're not fulfilling the mitzvah. The mitzvah is havana, understanding, in addition to yediyah, in addition to the knowledge. So again, knowledge you can get from somebody else. Somebody told you, so now you know. It's written, so now you know. But understanding means that you can explain what you were just told. And that's what Bina is. Meven dover metoich dover. Understanding means you were given some information and you figured out from that information more understanding. Then you have fulfilled the mitzvah of Yedias Hashem, of knowing God. So, when do you believe and when do you know? Or what do you believe and what do you know? So a general rule of thumb is belief applies to subjects that cannot be known. Anything that can be known, no matter how hard it will be to get to know it, you have to try. And to say, well, look, it's too much work to know it, I'll just believe it. That's not belief and it's not knowledge, that's just foolish. Like the famous story, a scientist, a religious scientist, said to the Rebbe, "We don't believe that there's life on other planets, do we?" The Rebbe said, "Believe? You're a scientist. Go take a look. It's expensive, okay, but you don't use belief in something that you can know. Make a rocket ship and go to Mars and see. You're sitting here believing what's going on Mars. That's shtusim." Another thing. Believing means knowing for sure that something is true. You can't treat belief like a personal responsibility. You're told to believe, so you believe. You believe what? Whatever. If it's a mitzvah to believe, I'll believe it. So you can tell me whatever you want. Fine, I believe it. The fact, what you're believing in, has to be more real than your belief in it. So, for example, you ask a guy, "Do you believe in God?" He says, "Yeah." So you believe God runs the world? Yeah. So you believe God caused the storm? I don't know. How am I supposed to know? But you believe it. Yeah, I believe it. Why? I'm supposed to believe it. So once I believe it, I fulfilled my obligation. Now, does God run the world? I don't know. Mashiach is coming. You believe that? Yeah. So he's coming? I don't know. Doesn't look like. But you believe it. Yeah, I believe it. Why? Why? I keep kosher, I keep Shabbos, and I believe. That's not belief. That's just lazy. Look, I don't want any trouble. I'm supposed to believe. Okay, I believe. I believe and leave me alone. That's not the function of belief. So, the place for belief is in things that cannot be known. Anything that can be known, if you don't know, you don't know. Believing doesn't help. It's not even a good thing. At this point in history, to be practical, at this point in history, if a person says, "I don't believe that there's such a thing as God," it's the most unintelligent argument, or the most unintelligent statement in the world. For all of history, there's one thing that hasn't changed. People believe in God. For you to come today, 5,000 years later, and say, "Nah, there's no such thing," you're not sensible. You make no sense. If everybody is talking about something, then the intelligent thing to do is find out more about it. I understand there's a problem. You go to somebody who's talking about God, and you say, "Tell me about God." And they say, "Well, we don't know much about him." So now you get to be a little suspicious. Everybody's talking about him. Nobody knows anything about him. Sounds a little funny, no? But if something is spoken about by human beings, then there's something there. What it is exactly, find out. But don't say there's no such thing. It's a ridiculous, it's foolish. So just logically, anything human beings speak about has some reality. Find out what it is. So if somebody says to you, God created the world, the intelligent response is, how do you know? What do you know? Tell me. If you don't know, I'll ask somebody else. But to say, no, there's no such thing. So what's everybody talking about? If somebody says the Torah was given at Har Sinai 3,000 years ago, you say, I don't believe it. What do you mean you don't believe it? It's so foolish. Who was there? Where is it written? How do you know? What happened there? That's intelligent. It didn't happen. For this you have to be smart. To say, oh no, that's smart. You have spoiled children. 5-year-olds. You tell them something and the 5-year-old says, oh no. For this you need intelligence? You can be 5 years old. So if a person is 55 and says, oh no, you never grew up. So the perfect example for it, which is really, I think, helpful. An explorer comes back from wherever he went, let's say to the Congo. He comes back and he tells you that there are people there, they're pygmies. They're 3 feet tall. You say, oh, come on. I don't believe that. You're intelligent? You say, I don't believe that. Why? Because you're smart? Not at all. You never heard before of pygmies, of little people. You never heard such a thing. So when you do hear about it, your reaction is, oh no? Why oh no? Why? Because you never heard it. So you say to the explorer, I never heard of such a thing. So what would the explorer say? I'm an explorer. My job is to go and see things you never saw before. If I come back and I tell you what you already know, I'll lose my job. Then I'm not an explorer. And I haven't discovered anything. So what does it mean? I never heard that before. That's how you learn. Every day you should hear something you never heard before. Or people say, I never saw such a thing. Because you never went to the Congo, so you never saw such a thing. An explorer comes from Australia and says there are kangaroos, and you say, oh, I never heard of such a thing. You don't want to trust anybody. So you go to Australia and see if there are kangaroos. But you can't sit here and say no. No, there are no kangaroos. It's not intelligent. So keep your accounts separate. There's faith and there's knowledge. If somebody says God gave us the Torah at Har Sinai 3,000 years ago, that's not a belief. That's a historical event. See if you can trace it down. Ask more questions. Find out more about it. It's not unknowable. If there were people there, and you know that it was in the Sinai desert, and you know that it was on a mountain, and you know that it was in the middle of the spring, so find out more. This is unknowable. This you have to believe. No. But if God says, I care very much about what you eat or don't eat, you have to believe it. Wait, you want to do an investigation? You want to investigate and figure out what he does care and what he doesn't care. This is not knowable. So if he tells you, you have no choice but to believe it or not believe it. But that's a subject for emunah. But that the created world has a creator, this has nothing to do with faith. It's like saying, do you believe in George Washington? Do I believe in him? Either I read the accounts, I know the history book, I know where he was, what he did, and so, or I don't know. But belief? Where does belief come in? Do you believe that he didn't chop down the cherry tree? Okay, that's a matter of belief. Unless you have pictures, you have evidence. So let's go back to the question. How do you believe in something you don't know? Like when people say, if you could prove it to me, I'll believe it. Don't be so foolish. If I could prove it to you, then you don't have to believe it, then you'll know it. And on the other hand, there are things people believe for absolutely no reason. And it's an accepted fact. I believe you, I don't believe you. Based on what? I decided. I'm going to believe you, I'm not going to believe you. So use the word carefully. You don't believe in history. It's a subject. You know it or you don't know it. Why is it important in my life? For this we have to know something about God himself. When you ask people who are religious, you say, did God create the world for a reason or without a reason? Nobody would say God created the world for no reason. If God created the world with a purpose, with a reason, then the whole world exists for that reason. Shouldn't you find out what it is? You exist because of that reason. You don't want to know why you exist? This is too religious for you. Or one of the questions in the film, who is he to tell me what to do? It's like, I exist. I'm real. I have a life. I'm busy. I got important things to do. And he comes and mixes into my life. Who invited him? So let's get it real. A couple of years ago, you did not exist. Nobody needed you. Nobody was looking forward to you. Like this teenager asked his mother, so you're happy you had me? Mother says, actually, we didn't know it was going to be you. You were not real a couple of years ago. All of a sudden, you're real and you're important and you're busy. And God, who created the whole world, has no business mixing into your busy schedule. You got it all so backwards. So here's really the problem. Or what is the course called? The struggling with faith. Huh?
Wrestling with faith.
Wrestling with faith. What's the wrestling? The wrestling is, am I God or is there a real God? This is what you're struggling with. It's a little embarrassing, no? Am I real, or is there something more real than me? Most decent human beings, until our generation, most decent human beings always knew there's got to be something more real than me. Not only because I was just born, but because I'm going to die. So how real am I? Even the universe. A while ago it didn't exist. And in a while it's not going to exist again, according to scientists. So how can it be real? So there has to be something more real than the universe. So I was reading some theory that there was an alien, intelligent beings that created the... You're willing to consider that? If this is not real, what is? That's it. It's as simple as that. So scientists are trying to figure out what really existed that made everything else. Now, no matter what you come up with, you can call it by whatever name you want. A particle, a substance, a gas, an energy, whatever you're going to call it. If it always was, then it's God. It's more real than the universe. Because the universe wasn't always. But then you have the mystery, the important mystery. If God always was, because that's what God means, something that always is, doesn't have to be created. And it's without limits, it's not like us. If it's not like us, why did he create the world? Not how. Everybody is going to say, if this being created the world, there is a why. There has to be. Otherwise, why would he change? Why would he make something that isn't there suddenly come into being? There's got to be a why. To figure out what that is the most intelligent, the most useful, and the most meaningful of all questions in the universe. No? But here's the problem. If you say that he created the world for a reason, then he sounds like us. What could be so important to him that he is forced to create the world? So, well, he wasn't forced. If he has a reason, then he has to do it, no? Unless it's not a good reason. If it's not a good reason, he shouldn't have done it. So either way, there's a problem. If it's an important reason, then it forces him to do it. Because it's so important, you got to do it. So something is more powerful than him. On the other hand, if it's not a compelling good reason, then why did he do it? That is a very intelligent question. You want to know the answer? Join the course.
Brings us to lesson 2. Does God really care? Many Jewish observances seem petty and burdensome, and they interfere with the way we choose to run our lives. Why can't God just leave me alone?
The story about this elderly couple. They're married for 50 years, and they're driving in the car, and he's sitting by the wheel and she's sitting by the door. And she says, what happened? When we first got married, we sat close. Now you're sitting on that side, I'm sitting on this side. Why'd you move away? He says, I move away? I'm the driver. I can't move away. If I move away, we'll crash. So if anybody moved away, it must be you. What do we need him for? Why is he interfering in our lives? No, he is running our lives. He's driving. He's making it all happen. Question is, are you with the plan or are you moved away? But the beginning of the question was, does he really need us? So here's the problem. If he really needs us, then he's not God. We're God. If he doesn't really need us, why did he create us? This is what all of Hasidus is all about. Hasidus explains two things very, very clearly. Number one, he doesn't need you. How could he need you? You're nothing, you're insignificant, you're tiny, he's everything, he's always, he doesn't change, he doesn't need, he doesn't depend. The better you understand that, the better you know him. The better you understand his reality. His reality is he's missing nothing, he's lacking nothing, he's perfect, he's eternal, he's infinite, and you're tiny and insignificant. But you got to really understand that. For example, how far is 1 from a billion? Very far. What you can buy for $1 and what you can buy for $1 billion is very different. There's no vending machine that needs $1 billion. $1 gets you whatever's in there. The distance between 1 and $1 billion is very big. But it's only big. $1 billion is made up of a lot of $1. But if you're talking about infinite, bli gvul, how far is $1 from bli gvul? It's not far. They have no connection whatsoever. But more than that, how far is $1 billion from infinite? Exactly the same. No closer at all. So we know God is infinite. So one human being can't really be significant. How about 7 billion human beings? Exactly the same. No closer. So how many stars are there? How many galaxies are there? How many atoms are there? It doesn't make a difference. It's nothing because you're comparing it to infinite. That's one explanation. The other explanation is that you are, to God, everything. Not because of you, because of him. There's something about him that he needs you. Not because of you, because of him. Well, let's put it in different words. The more you understand that he doesn't need you, the more you understand that he is perfect without you, the better you understand how much he needs you. Does this make any sense? Like in a marriage, if I don't need you for your money, and I don't need you for your work, and I don't need you for your advice, and I don't need you for your sense of humor, but I need you, then I need you even more. If it's not for this, and not for this, and not for this, so what do you need? That shows how much you need. So if he, who needs nothing, and is lacking nothing, and is infinitely greater than the entire creation, etc., 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 he wants you, that means he needs you very much. He needs you his way, not your way. You know what that means? As human beings, we would say, how much does he need me? From 1 to 10, how much? And God says, it doesn't go by 1 to 10. I need you. And I am not 1, and I'm not 10. How much does he need us? How important is the world to him? In order to have a world, he has to hide himself. I don't even know what that means. How does he do that? How does something infinite hide itself? But he managed. Doesn't sound like he likes it. Why would an infinite being like to hide himself, to limit himself? Tzimtzum. But he's willing to do it in order for the world to exist. And in order for his purpose to be fulfilled, there has to be freedom of choice. He has to give us freedom of choice. Freedom of choice means he has to make it possible for us to go against him. Does that too. He likes it. He hates it. But if that's what it takes, he does that. In order to have his purpose fulfilled, his plan, he has to create a Yetzer Hara. Does he like a Yetzer Hara? He doesn't like it. Does he want to create it? He doesn't want to create it. Gimel Dvarim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mischaret Aleihem B'chol Yom. Every day he regrets creating a Yetzer Hara. And if he regrets, it's serious. His kind of regret. So why does he do it? So this is the first thing we need to know about him. Not that he exists, but who he is. For the purpose that he has, he is willing to put up with things that he hates. Which tells you how important his project is. Which I think leads us to another one of the questions. What about all the evil? What about all the pain? What about all the suffering? Zu Torah v'zu schara. When Adam and Chava were sent out of Gan Eden, they were sent into a world of ugliness. Not a world that they made ugly. It's an ugly world. It's Olam HaTachten. It is the lowest possible world. What's a lowest possible world? A world that has evil, it has pain, it has death. That's a lowest possible world. So to ask, why are all these bad things happening? You know which world you're in. You know which world you're in. You're in the lowest possible world. So what are you asking? Why is the world so low? So right from the start, we are told the purpose is to fix the lowest world. So what kind of question is this? How come the world is so low? It's the lowest world. Our job is to fix the lowest world. So why is it so hard? It's hard to fix the lowest world. So then the question is, can it even be done? That's a good question. If you're willing to accept the responsibility and you're asking, can it really be done? Now you're sounding like a mensch. Now there's somebody to talk to. The answer is it can be done. Because we're not doing it by ourselves. It's His plan. So yes, it can be done, and we're doing it, and we're going to succeed.
Lesson 3. Jewish beliefs seem primitive. God seems to espouse outdated beliefs such as the notions of a chosen nation and designated gender roles. Plus, He interferes with our choice of lifestyle.
Outdated. I don't even know what that means. Is family an outdated notion? Some people might say yes. Well, good luck to them because they're not going to be around very long. What makes something outdated? I have no idea. It's a meaningless concept. Besides, we know from fashion, everything goes in circles. It's outdated today, it'll be back in fashion a couple of years from now. So why go through that whole cycle? Just hang on, and it'll be back. There are some things that don't go by dates. Oh, this is America. So in America you don't have to breathe. In America you don't have to eat. In America you don't have to have children. What's America? Oh, it's the 20th century. Yeah. So somebody put it this way. These laws in the Torah are 3,000 years old. Don't you think they need to be a little updated? If you invent a new sin, we'll make a new law. So far we haven't invented any new sins, so it's the same law. Create a new sin. Or create a new mitzvah. So people still have the same issues, we still have the same moral questions, we still have the same moral doubts, and we have to find our way. And the Torah gives us direction for moral issues. And moral issues are never outdated. I mean, even without getting into the subject, even the abortion issue. Oh, it's a new issue. No, it's not a new issue. The question is it murder or isn't it? So you can say it's not. All right. If you can prove that it's not murder, then you're right. If it is murder, thou shalt not kill. That has not changed, and it will never be outdated. So the whole point of godly instruction is that if this is what brings the world to its completion, to God's plan, then how can it be outdated? We're just getting warmed up. So the further we go in history, the more important it becomes to be moral, to not lie, to not steal, to not cheat, and therefore it gets even harder. But irrelevant? Of course it's relevant. And the same is true with all the mitzvahs. Putting on tefillin, going to the mikveh, getting married, it's become much more relevant, not less. And we're seeing more and more the need for it, and the truth of it, and the value of it, not less. But so many people are not getting married. Very sad. They are not the future. They're the end.
Lesson 4. A good God who does bad stuff. How can we understand and relate to God's intimate and caring presence in our lives amid the experience of suffering and tragedy?
I don't know. Next.
Lesson 5. Are religion and science at odds? How might a scientific person embrace beliefs that cannot be proven in a lab, or reconcile compelling evidence for the theory of evolution and the age of the universe with a little reading of the Bible?
The theory of evolution. They're working on it. Don't jump to conclusions. For the last couple of years, the process has been, the world is 4 billion years old. Well, actually 8. No, 12, 13, 16. Keeps getting massively older. I wouldn't be surprised if they start finding things and they start cutting it back. Not 16, 14, not 14, 6, not 6, 2, not 2, 5,000. You're talking about a theory. Wait. The biggest problem is when you start having faith in science. That's a monstrosity. Oh, this little teenager says, "Oh, science will find answers to everything." I said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Absolutely." Doesn't that sound like a religion? Yeah, sounds like a religion. Don't get religious about science. So here's an important caution. Some people say, Torah says the world was created in 6 days. Do you have to be so literal? A day has to mean exactly a day, 24 hours? Can't a day mean an era? Don't be so literal. You're right. In many cases, we're not so literal. But then again, don't be so literal with your science. The scientist says this rock looks like it's 30,000 years old. 30,000. Don't be so literal. Maybe he's off by 10,000. Maybe his whole dating process is wrong. Don't get so literal. 30 means 30, not a day less. So if you're going to be intelligent with science also. Don't take everything so literally. The rock is 30,000 years aged because it was created ancient. The scientist can tell you how aged it is. He can't tell you how long it took to get there. So don't take it so literal. It's not the age of the universe, it's how aged the universe is. So there's no conflict between science and religion.
Lesson 6. How can I relate to a God I cannot see? Can a finite human have an intimate relationship with an infinite God? If it is indeed impossible, where do I start?
The first thing is, since he is the creator, he sees value or meaning in our existence. So in this relationship, he's already initiated the relationship. It's much easier to respond once a relationship is initiated than to initiate. So again, understanding him, making him more real than ourselves, is the basis of a relationship. But when you're real and he's not real to you, then you're right. How can you have a relationship? So if all you know is that you're finite and he's infinite, well, that's the end of the story. But that's not all we know. We know that in spite of being infinite, he finds great meaning in having us. He is looking for a relationship. Practically speaking, it boils down to this. If our existence is meaningful and purposeful, that automatically implies that there was a purpose for which we came into being. The purpose was there first, we are the result. If the purpose is there first, whose purpose is it? So you can't say, I have a purpose, but I don't believe in a creator. Well then, who gave you a purpose? You make one up as you go along? Today my purpose is to become a doctor. Next year maybe I'll change my purpose and become a carpenter. Then you have no purpose. You're just making it up. If you say that there is a purpose, it means someone who created you with a plan, with a purpose. So is it relevant to know that there's a God? If you know what God means, then obviously it's relevant. It's your purpose. It's why you exist. There's nothing more relevant than that in your life. So, it's probably true that if you don't have anything in your life that you're willing to die for, then you also have nothing in your life worth living for. If life is truly valuable, sacred, you have to understand why. What makes it so valuable? So this argument, it doesn't fit into my life. It's interfering with my choices. The only reason you exist is because of that reason. Your choices should match it, not the other way around. Because the scariest thought to an intelligent human being is the possibility that I died and I didn't fulfill my purpose. There's nothing scarier than that. So we make up stuff. He died fighting. He's a mensch. He didn't go down. He died fighting. That was his purpose? So he fulfilled his purpose? He was brave. So, that's enough. Listen to this. It's so tragic. A child, God forbid, You hear it on the news. A child was killed, kidnapped, whatever. What do they say about that child? He loved hockey. That's all you can say about a kid. We're always going to remember him for his love of hockey. That is so insulting. So it's not relevant. It's not important to know why you exist. But if you die thinking that you didn't fulfill your mission, you're completely depressed. If you had one wish, I just heard this joke. So an angel came and told a person that he can make one wish, and you have 24 hours to figure out what that one wish should be. So he goes home and he talks to his family, and he realizes there are so many things that he can ask for. For example, his wife is going blind. Should ask for her. She should not. He wants to be rich, and they don't have a child. So what should he ask for? A child, his wife's ability to see, or for money, for rich. Anyway, that Malach comes back the next day and says, no, you have only one wish. What is it? He says, I wish that my wife could see our baby in a golden carriage. So you can wrap it all up into one. What is your one wish? If it had to be one wish, I want to fulfill my purpose. And that's why, if I don't have money, could be that's not my purpose. So to wish I had money, it's nice, but it's not. If you had one wish, it wouldn't be money. What would it be? To live long? For what? There's only one wish. I don't want to die without accomplishing what I'm supposed to accomplish. Every human being has that. We just get distracted with foolish stuff. So what is our purpose? Our purpose is to be partners with God in making this world godly. How have you made this world godly? And what does it mean to make it godly? Of course, peace, not letting anybody go hungry, not letting anybody be sick or suffer. But it also means a world in which God's interest is important to people. It should be his kind of a world. So if kosher is important to him, then it should be a world where people keep kosher. If Shabbos is important to him, then it should be a world in which people keep Shabbos. It should be his kind of world. Will that be good for us? Yes. Take a guess. Yeah, it will be good for us. But our purpose is to make it good for him.